Welcome back. This is the 3 PM or 1500 turn from the first US attack. Quick summary of developments on the op sheets is that there's not really been any change. Turns have continued to accrue, but the attack from the Germans in the woods, they still haven't got approval to proceed, so they're still waiting on that. Everyone else is still working under their existing op sheets. We've rolled for the weather, and that has got worse. We're now operating under light fog with a visibility of only 7 hexes. That's interesting because now the artillery on the ridge are out of range, so the US can move up to do that. We'll discuss that when we get to the US turn there. I did manage to roll for one P47 though, so we're going to go straight into the artillery and aircraft phase, and the Americans have got all this artillery and they've not really used it, so they are going to start, I think, shelling the woods. They can't see into these woods, but I think they should be able to see to the edge here, so I'm going to work on that basis and using these. So I'm going to call down the artillery on the edge. I'll need to go and check the line of sight, make sure they could actually pull it to those hexes, and also we're going to see if we can use some of the heaviest artillery in Comerscheid as well. Again, I can't see through to this hex, but I should be able to see from here to there and hopefully cover it in the wider hexes around the attack zone. And not satisfied with that, although all the German units are out in the open, out in some sort of cover, so they're not got a great chance of the plane spotting them, but I'm going to call down a plane attack on that as well, see if we can drive this guy out and complete the capture of Comerscheid. So I'm just going to pause here while I check the line of sight. What I'm also going to do is include a little video about how I've been doing that off camera, show a couple of tips that I think I picked up that might be useful for people starting up on this as well. So back shortly. Okay, as a little aside, I thought I'd show you my approach to calculating line of sights and working out whether or not we have things blocked in the game. I've got the luxury of actually having the map set up separately as I'm running it on a vassal section, which means at least I don't have to continually move counters and everything out the way. But I've also created a little app on my iPhone, which I put on well, it's an Excel spreadsheet that you can use on your iPhone, that allows me to make things a little bit easier in terms of working out quarter marks and all that kind of stuff as well. So I'll show you how I've done it in this particular scenario. So here we've got a US platoon in Vossenack trying to fire on a German platoon that's just emerged from the woods, and I think he can't. I think it's going to be blocked from that point of contention there. So those are the 3 hexes. So I'll just show you how I calculate the line of sight using the standard elevation method and the tips I've got to make it a bit easier. So let's move those out the way. Firstly, the German was in this hex. Now, one of the beauties of the old maps is they've got no dots on there, so I've also created a little overlay, if you can just see it there, which you can actually lay on top of the map, which tells you where the centre is. And basically it's about 1 millimetre off, but that lies pretty bang on the contour line, so centre of that hex is going to be 400. So just open up. So that's 400. So the target we put in down here as 400. But we need to calculate the other two. So the top contour line is 420. I've already got that in there. If you can see that. I don't know if that's gonna focus. But basically, you've got three lines. You've got the top contour. Then you just measure the distance between the contour lines, and then you measure the distance from the top contour line to the centre of the, well, it says point of contention, but actually it could be any hex, and then it will tell you exactly the height you've got there, and then you can plug the figures into the bit below. So we need to first calculate the height of this hex. So that is there. I can use my ruler to get the, yeah, it's about, so going through the centre of that, the distance between those two contour lines, I'm pretty sure that's the shortest, is 72 millimeters. And the distance to the centre is 32, which, if you can see that, gives you a height of 410. So to use the same principle on what I believe is the point of contention on that one, it's always a little bit of a judgment call going through the centre as to what's the shortest, but I think that's pretty much it. So that's 77, put it back in here, 77, and the distance to it is 43, 410. And to be honest, I don't need to put that, I can put it in, but so 410, it's going to be block, the target is 400, although it's 1, 2, 3, 4 away. Point of contention is 410, so this is obviously going to be blocked. It's only one away. You scroll up, you can see it's blocked. That spreadsheet actually was already on Board Game Geek, but I've just tried to combine the two together. So real advantage of this is just the where ease it makes of trying to work out this rather than having to then do all the mental arithmetic. If you're a great mental arithmetic guys out there, you can probably already work out your quarter lines, but I found this an awful lot easier. So just as an aside, that's how I've been approaching line of sight. Hope that's useful. Well, I hope you enjoyed the theory video, because the practice was that nobody could see anything. This blocked, these two X's are the same height. This is just below, these are 45, so that's blocked, so no spotting. The rounds fell out of sight. Trying to spot a unit in partly protected terrain with no spotter means you need a 6, and we threw a 1, so nothing happened there. And then again over here, basically these hexes are the same height as the ones below. These are lower, we're blocked. So again, the spotting rounds fell short and nothing happened. So on to the action phase. Let's roll for initiative. Americans 2, Germans 1. So it's going to be the Americans first, and I'll be back to let you know how that went. I've put you back in the middle of the American turn to illustrate something that I think I may have been getting wrong in previous videos, and that's Overwatch, or who can fire Overwatch fire, particularly when you are using mortars to support. Rereading the rules the other night, it says only one hex can bring that fire down. Now previously I've allowed someone to be spotting for mortars, and I'm not sure if that's right or wrong, but if only one hex can fire, then in this case that the US squad has moved across the open ground hidden by the buildings, moved up to assault here. I would have allowed this squad to have fired with these mortars as well, because assuming this is really one, I'm thinking that's wrong now. I think it would have been one or the other, so that's the way I'm going to play it. I think I'll have to post some questions up on Board Game Geek to see if I can get some clarity on that. So it does make it slightly less deadly for people moving up. So I'm going to play, it's got to be this this one, and he might as well be the one shooting because these are only 6. It probably means I should have been stacking some of these things together to get bigger hexes to potentially fire back. But let's play as we are. So 6 is half rounded up, so that's another one is 7. 7 firing into partly protected, but he's moving. There is only actually no, that doesn't matter. 3, so 7, and then shifted twice because it's one range, makes it 11 or 13. A 42 is a morale check. So these guys have got 3, 4, 5, 6 because they've lost 1. Minus 1, back down to 5 again. 15, he survives. So he's going into assault. So this gets another chance to shoot, and interestingly in this case, another thing that I hadn't been applying is you can, as well, instead of the cover of this hex, you can actually look at this hex side. Now I suppose this hex side forms part of protective, so actually that would be -3, so I'm staying with partly protective. I think what it does allow you to do is if you're moving, say, between these buildings down here, actually that's an open, so you can but in this case we're moving into my more dense buildings, so I'll stick with +2, see how this one comes out. A 36 again, so another morale check. 26, 5, just copped it, he's just suppressed, so this guy is hanging on for dear life. Didn't quite make it in. Now this can't fire because he's down below the 420, so, and looking at that, he's going to be about at least 415. These we know already from the fire are both at 425, so that X would block any line of sight into here. So that's the end of that fire. Didn't quite get in. I'll complete the rest of the turn and then come back with the summary. Right, just the wrap up of the Americans phase, not much more to report. We pulled down the chem mortars and everybody else on this guy. Got a morale check and he rolled a 66, so he's paralysed. So that's a useful result to keep these guys at bay. I know that now the fog's come down, these could move up, so just wanted to think whether they would do that or not. So given they've been based there, I decided I would let them do that if they could roll better than their command prep, which was 4, and they didn't. They rolled a 2. If this guy starts moving up and it's obvious, then I think we'll respond to that, but at the moment you'd probably keep out of it, so I'm leaving it like that. And actually the only thing I should now do is I'm going to lose that, which is fine, he's out, and I'm actually going to risk losing this one as well. Actually he should no longer, now he's in partly protective and not moving. That's going to trigger an up fire here at 7. The +2 shift is going to be cancelled out by the part protector now, so it's only a 7 fire. 24 at 7 has no effects. That was worth it. So we're now up close and personal. If he wants to try and move or pull back. Okay, so that's the end of the American turn. Over to the Germans. Back shortly to report how that went. German turn. This one. They're now lined up for attack, but with no orders. These guys have showing their colours now. They need to be able to have enough time to get in. So I think the US are fair to make a move against this next time round. They're kind of hoping that they get the initiative and get in. Down here, the Germans are trying to move round the paralysed units, because all these guys can fire because they're coming out of partly protected terrain. There's no Overwatch fire available because they couldn't see into the previous hex. The only thing I should do actually is I'm going to see if this guy tries to recover to become suppressed. So this will allow this to fire at them. 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 with a -2 because the terrain, +2. A 35 is a morale check. Let's see how lucky these guys are. 61 is it was going to be, it's 5 -1's 4 is suppressed. So, well, I'm not sure if he's not paralysed again, does that mean I can get as far as suppressed? I guess it does. Another one for the checks. So he's sneaking along there. That's the end of the German turn. On to the next turn of the game. Okay, it's now the 15-20 turn, and we've had some important developments on the opsheets. The attack from the 2nd Battalion, the 983rd Battalion, is on. So they finally passed their opsheet check with a 55. So that's going to be kicking off this turn. So we're in for an interesting last hour. 3 more turns to go. First up, we'll roll for who gets initiative on the artillery, and that's the Americans, 5-2. They've already rolled to see if they get any fighter planes. They don't. P-47s are still grounded. So the only place really we can exchange fire is here, and I think we may have to ask one of the squads to take one. Oh, where is my for the team here? We're going to call down fire from the units here, and the Germans are actually going to reciprocate and call down their slightly smaller battery in the same way. So we're on for an artillery duel here. I'll do all the rolling and I'll tell you how that comes out in just a minute. Right, I've come back in the middle of this because it's been quite an interesting artillery round, and I thought I'd play through this to make sure I get it right and anybody could potentially comment on this. So far he has survived. One German unit has been eliminated. We have a further step loss over here, and we're moving on to this guy who has taken 2 step losses, and the morale check is a save yourself retreat. So by my reckoning, the best way would be to go back to this partly protected terrain, which will also be in the artillery fire and also would trigger the Overwatch fire from here, and would also trigger 2 Overwatch fires because the bridge is a bottleneck. I think I've got all that right, so I'm going to work my way through. So I think you try and move. So he does. So he moves into there, taking his loss with him, therefore triggering a standard overwatch into here. So that's going to be 6, just with a +1, but it's for him, partly protective is cancelled out. So 6 + 1 is on a 7 to 8, a 13, so it's no effect, and it would be no effect on the others. But then I get another one because the bridge was a bottleneck, which is a 46, that would be the same. So that's a morale check and a morale check for the whole hex. He's going to be the worst of 4, so he is going to be, let's just flip it, got a 2. 2 + 4 is 6, +1 because the battalion is 7. He's in artillery attack zone, so that's 8. But he's in part protector, so it takes it down to 7. So 7 for the whole hex is a 13. Brilliant, no effect. So he then gets attacked by the artillery along with the rest of them. That is a 12. So 12. He was moving, so nothing cuts out. But 24. How many have we got in the hex now? We've got 2 plus a squad, which is 5, 7, 8. So we've got +1 for the number of those. So he would be a 24, would be a morale check again. So morale check 24, same again. He just makes it. What does he? Sorry, let's work this through again. So 24, 6. In a target attack zone makes it 7. Battalion makes it 8. Partly protected makes it 7 again. At 24 is suppressed. So basically, the whole hex is now suppressed. I think I've got that right, although you tend to worry whether you have or not. I think I can get rid of that if they're all going to be suppressed. On it goes. That, no, didn't want to do that. That's it. The only last attack is these guys, which is a 12 in partly protective. Takes it down, and it's a -2 partly protective, -1 because only 3. -3 is a 6. 64 6 though is another step loss. This has been quite brutal. The way this has worked out. That makes him 5. 6 for the attack zone, but once back down to 5 again. That's a 14. He has passed. So that's the end of all that artillery. It certainly thinned out this lot a bit, and we can now get on into the action phase. I'll be back. Well, let's roll for the initiative now, see who's going next. 5 for the Americans, 4 for the Germans. So US will go first, and I'll come back with that in a minute. Well, that was a very interesting German turn. The whole of the 2nd Battalion launched a sort of banzai charge, I suppose, well, probably, out of the woods, and initially almost everybody was suppressed, bar this one who passed a whole raft of morale checks and has actually managed to capture a hex of Osnack. But because of the shortage of time, I decided to recover everybody, and as you can see, miraculously most of them have made it back. We took an additional step loss here, but everybody else is now back up. So we're in a good, interesting shape, and we need to look at how best to get this guy out, otherwise we've got a German minor victory on our hands. Not so exciting here. The tanks deployed here have stalled these guys. They're not going to charge across, there's too few of them, but at least they're holding the tanks down in this area. This really, I think, is waiting for the next round of artillery fire. This guy is just trying to move around so we can potentially get somewhere. He tried to recover, and despite it was only this little chap firing, they've kept him suppressed. So very interesting. Last couple of turns coming up, I think. On to the Americans next. Another very interesting turn, and a pretty frustrating one for the Americans. They fired off all their mortars, but to no real effect, to be honest, other than to keep this guy suppressed. They tried to soften up this guy, and they've almost done it, but then an interesting combat occurred. I assaulted it with 2 tanks. I think it's an interesting illustration of how tanks on their own against infantry don't always do the job. So they battled away for a lot of turns because there wasn't a lot of area firepower to the tanks, and also the German unit obviously was trying to get, well, actually they needed 8 as their AT rolls, but lasted about 6 or 7 rounds of combat. Eventually they whittled this thing down to 4, but it actually took an extra step loss just to keep there, but it killed off both the tanks. So those are both now there. Fortunately we didn't lose for the morale check, it was only a 1. So I've had to pull up 2 tanks to block this off again. They survived the attack from here on their AT rolls, just to block things off. We are a bit short of people here, but we've basically held off because I didn't want to lose all mark fired and then to lose the initiative, and then us not being able to do Overwatch. So although I may have made a mistake there and I'll have to check, I think you can fire Overwatch if you're at range adjacent hex, so maybe you've missed a trick there for the Americans. It's all quiet down here. They actually, I've forgotten about these, but they've got a couple of turns. They're going to assault those next time and finish it out, which that's not right. I'll just finish this bit off and then I'll just come back and tell you how this went as well. Left them all alone. That wasn't very successful either. So this unit charged up to assault but got caught with a 2-step loss and is now paralysed. So these guys are now lined up to try and make a final assault in the next turn. See if we can capture this off. That finishes this time the turn, and back with 1540, only 2 turns to go next. This US 10 turn will end eventually, honest, but I did miss one thing that I really should do, which is I think it's important these guys try and recover from being suppressed. Even though they're under fire, we need them to pull down artillery, and we don't want the Germans to sneak up. So I'm going to risk it. That's losing that. Triggers fire from here. 6. They're partly protective, so it shouldn't be too dangerous. Just don't want to avoid a morale check if I possibly can. Bollocks, I think is the appropriate phrase for the US there. With this guy here, I think this could not be. He's 2, so he's got a morale of 6. The battalion morale makes it 7. Point sector 6 again. 43. Okay. Well, he shouldn't be to move. Anyway, back to suppressed again. Could have been worse. At least we didn't try and run away and leave everything wide open. Genuinely the end of the American turn. Back again soon. 1540 turn, and things are really on a knife edge here. It could go either way. If we can, Germans are back in Vossenack, but only in 1 hex. Stringamüller is about to be assaulted, but again, could go either way. Will the Germans get in or not and be able to stay there? And again, Kummerscheid, there's always someone hanging on one way or the other. So what will the last two turns throw up? It is the artillery phase and the aircraft phase. Firstly, do we get any aircraft? Yes, we do, even though we're in, what are we in? We're in light fog. At the moment we've got an airplane to help us out. That will be coming over, well, I think it needs to come over here, yeah. And we've also got artillery, so what are we going to do? Let's, I think we need to defend ourselves as much over here, but artillery is going to land on us as much as the Germans, so that's not really appropriate. So I think over here the planes, I'll come down and see if I can take this guy out. I think he's potential danger coming through. On the artillery front, I think we're down to the same battle that we had over Stringamüller. But hang on, can a suppressed unit spot for artillery? No, they can't. But can this unit see through along there? Yes, because they're all going to be along the same lines, or along 320. So yeah, 320, 320. So yes, so the other squad can spot. So we have our last 155mm round landing on here. The Germans can land 105 onto here, and we'll see how all that comes out. Right, I'll just roll for all that and tell you how it all finished. Lots of bangs and flashes, but not a huge amount of effect of that, all that artillery. The planes missed, so that we won't even go up to there. The only impact we've seen is these guys were forced into our save yourself retreats, and they've been moved back and are now suppressed. These guys had to take a step loss because he rolled a 66. They're all bad shoots, the artilleries. So the mortar platoon's taken a step loss there, and they've remained suppressed. So that's the end of that. Let's roll for initiative 5-4, Americans first. Right, I'll tell you how that went in a minute. Quite a long and interesting battle here. The US blazed away with pretty much everything, but to no great effect. The only thing we've achieved is eventually assaulting and clearing out the squad here. So actually the Vossenack is now back in US control, but the return fire suppressed a bunch of stacks now, so we had to recover, and that's had an unfortunate side effect that the squad here, there was only one step. He recovered, but then took a step loss thanks to a 65 for the return fire from these. So that's 2 platoons out. So 2 on the battalion morale. These ones did manage to recover, however, so again, it's whether the Germans are going to be able to sneak past what's largely tanks now to see, and whether we take them on straight away in an assault. Down the bottom here though, this pretty much everyone's waiting for someone to blink and move. Down here the final assault happened and we have cleared out. We just need to move into this hex to show we've got control, and that is captured. So this is could alternate between a major victory either way at the moment. Next up is the Germans, and I'll come back and tell you how that went in a moment. Right, it's still on a knife edge, but things have definitely taken a step back for the Germans in that turn. Their attempt to close in on Wassenac has been well and truly repulsed. The whole range of, you can see up here, rolls in the 60 has ended up with these guys being paralysed. These are still suppressed. These guys have managed to get in an assault, but then were soundly beaten and surrendered, and these guys tried to send a roll of 66 on a morale check, made them surrender as well. So morale on this battalion is well and truly crumbled now. 3 units are out of the counts. They really can't survive any morale check whatsoever. Actually the only thing they did try and recover, and it got suppressed again. So my only potential is that these are split up because we had to divert those other tanks up. So this is taking account of the cover from here. If we go all first next time, they might be able to get in. These are going to make a run for here just to try and distract people. So might just get in there. In Stringamura, however, they have captured a hex, which could be crucial to get themselves a draw. Again, it'll depend how people recover and get in on here. He's finally recovered, so we've got people who can start moving. And Kronstadt a done deal for the Americans. These tried to find some line of sight, they haven't got them. So all to play for in the very last turn of the game. This is turned out to be quite an exciting one. I thought this was not going to kick off, but it certainly made the last few turns really exciting. Anyway, I'll be back with the very last turn in the next video.